Hello there, Douglas here from BWI Games. After about a year and a quarter of work, our latest game is finally complete, that being Sel Mounta, Siege of the Demon Castle, which of course is what we're showing off today. And having a dev just straight up talk you through the game is a bit unusual for a trailer, but it's what I feel like doing with this one. And I want to get it right onto it, so here we go. Sel Mounta, Siege of the Demon Castle, is the sequel to the RPG we released last year, Sel Quinta, the Six City Quest. Set on the same world of Baron Khalil, it continues the story of a group of adventurers travelling across 4 of the world's 5 main islands in order to rally support against the impending invasion of Tron V, the mysterious isolationist nation of Sel Tor, who are building a gigantic navy with the seeming goal of invading the entire world. In the first game, which is on Steam for free now by the way, so if you want to find out what happened in the first one properly, go take a look, there'll be a link in the description. The party was formed and managed through no small effort to gain the support of those nations. However, while exactly what would be a spoiler, something's gone very wrong in their quest. The party has been betrayed, injured in one case, and teleported away to the Isle of Sel Mounta, with their classes changed, their equipment and resources gone. Still reeling from these events, this is where the story picks up. Now, discovering that the island is under attack from an ongoing demon invasion, and that the King of Sel Mounta, King Adamant, can't grant his island's assistance until it's dealt with, the party's new goal becomes fully clear. But they're not the only forces at play this time, and Sel Tor is growing ever stronger. Now, that should give you a good rough idea of what's going on in the plot. But for now, some of the new stuff, and we'll start with the new party. We've got 5 returning members and 2 new ones, one of which you'll recognise from the previous game, as Renee has now joined the party full-time. The other new member is, well, I think it'd be spoilers to say too much here, so I'll leave them up to you to discover. However, to give you a quick idea of what you're working with, first up is the party's leader, Hetty. She's an experienced aide to the young king of Sel Quinta, acting as his personal herald, and also a bit of a surrogate art for him, and has a rather mysterious mechanical arm that even she doesn't fully understand. She's suffering from a slight lack of actually, having a class at all at the moment after what's happened, but has managed to work something out. Her skills vary between support or debuffing skills that tend to grant either a positive effect by having a negative downside, lightning magic, which she has a bit of an affinity for, or unusual spells that can bypass normal defences. And there's also the upside that not having a proper class means she's not limited in what equipment she can use. So perhaps her biggest strength will be the fact she's very much customisable. Next, Samson, the party's second in command. He's the only career adventurer, as it were, of the party. He's trying to live up to his grandfather, a famous adventurer that died under mysterious circumstances, leaving both his legendary sword and armour to him, though both have been lost by the party's sudden teleportation. He's become the party's healer, but doesn't have any magic anymore. He's forced to do it the old-fashioned way. Now, this does still work, but it's a lot slower, so while he can both heal injuries directly and even preempt status conditions by immunising the party against them, these abilities often take time to go off, so you'll want to plan ahead in combat. Next on the list is Catalin. She's gone from the party thief to the party's guardian, and is having to come to terms with having gone from trying to avoid direct confrontation as much as possible, to having to be right up at the front drawing as much attention as possible, not to mention her physical injuries and a strange ongoing condition that I won't say too much about just yet. Her skills are primarily defensive, allowing her to bolster defences, attack while guarding, draw aggression, and even more. But you'll have to watch the weight of all that heavy armour if she's still going to be fast enough to contribute properly. Meanwhile, Vagel has had probably the most dramatic change of all the party. Once a destruction mage of quite notable ability, she's now been changed to a berserker. While this does match her impressive temper, even if it has mellowed out quite considerably towards her friends at least, she's got a lot to deal with on top of her already considerable ambitions, the return of her old bitterly hated foe, and even having to deal with a challenge that even a master of melee, magic, and maybe even both doesn't get a free pass on. A newly forming romance of all things. But at a fight, you can counter out a battle with considerable might, backed up by a Fury status, which drastically increases power at the expense of control, which you'll have to manage carefully. Raelia, meanwhile, has had a totally unique issue to deal with. She's a demon in the middle of an ongoing demon invasion. And similar to Samson, her role has been totally inverted, going from a healing mage to a lancer, an offensive class with incredible speed and great damage, but limited by a cycle of techniques, going from offensive to ability-based and then defensive skills. You'll have to carefully manage that cycle to get the most out of her, but even then, she too has some very literal demons for her past returning to haunt her. Last is the party's newest member, Renee. Once a helper of Sel Tor's own king, this somewhat ditzy but very kind-hearted mage has been ordered onto your party, something that she's still struggling to come to terms with. She's been changed to a Chaos Mage, granting her access to incredible magic offense and some very powerful spells, most of which she can't aim very well, and combined with her already poor control of her magic, making the most of her incredible output might be dependent on luck as much as it is forward planning. But this is made even more difficult by the fact that she doesn't actually like combat, and with a comparative lack of experience compared to the rest of the party, is she going to be able to keep up? Now, it's not just the party that's new. There'll be also a lot more freedom this time when it comes to exploring the island. While Sel Quinta had a few little optional areas but was primarily a set path, Sel Mounta is divided effectively up into 3 main segments. During each, you'll have multiple options and tasks given to you by King Adamant that you'll have to complete. From pirate ships to volcanic lava lakes and ancient tombs sealing all sorts of dwarven horrors, shall we say, there's going to be a lot to see this time. It won't just be where you go and who you fight while you have more options this time either. There's just as much equipment available as last time, and nearly all of it is either new or works differently now, as does all of the new skills, and there's a lot of those. There's weapons of all sorts, some of which will change your default attack, some might grant elemental damage or even multi-elements, some might ignore part of the enemy's defense or inflict status effects, all sorts. Armor 2 grants different defenses, some specializing in defeating a certain type of offense, some granting improved capabilities from the user, and some of the heaviest can make you extremely resilient if at the expense of most of your speed. And this goes double for legendary equipment, of which there's a lot more now. You'll still have access to all the weapon types the first game too. Daggers, claws and firearms deal rapid attacks, swords offer reliable output and increase agility, axes and hammers hit harder at the expense of otherwise average capability, spears offer defense when attacking, bows grant increased accuracy versus evasive foes, curved blades specialise in counterattacks, and lastly there's scythes that specialise in critical effects or even just instant death. Quite a bit to work with this time. As well as this, there's also been some refinements going on with the equipment system as well. Certain later or rare equipment will allow you to either equip equipment you couldn't normally, allow you to dual wield, or grant access to magic and magical gear for those who can't normally use it at all. There's also scrolls that will grant access to more spells or techniques, while accessories grant a varying range of unique capabilities from, say, earning twice as much gold, to changing your attack elements, or maybe even just deliberately drawing more fire on a certain party member. That said, you're going to need this new kit. There's some new challenges on top of the story ones in the form of the 5 optional super bosses as opposed to the 2 from the original game. These are very tough fights that might well be impossible the first time you take them on, but could drop some very strong unique gear if you manage to defeat them. I can't say too much on these because I don't want to spoil most of them, but how do you feel about fighting a single rat? Now, some stuff however has changed much more considerably since last time. First of all, leveling. While I'm sure some people do, I generally do not enjoy grinding. The first game was made in such a way that you could, if you explored every area fully, play through it all in one go without any grinding at all, and you'd hit the level cap at about the right time to get the final boss. This time, however, leveling's changed completely. Rather than being XP based from killing foes, it's now milestone based. You'll level up upon defeating a boss and clearing an area instead. That said, I'm not fully discounting it either, as it were. Enemies might no longer drop XP, but they do still drop gold and items, as do bosses. And while once cleared on the map they stay cleared, you can rematch them. Enemy dens will randomly pick through one of the normal encounters on that map, or gold encounters will pop up after defeating the boss of the area, and allow you to rematch them for their unique items. Every boss has at least something, and nearly all of them are unique. You can't get them anywhere else, so it might well be worth considering fighting a few of them again if you're not sure you're up to the current area and need a bit of a boost. And as you might have noticed from what I said earlier on, there's no more random encounters, though you will have to fight certain encounters to progress. Combat 2 has also been overhauled this time. While the basics are still the same, selecting orders, what you want the party to do from either basic attacks, guard, TP-based skills that charge up while fighting, or mana-based skills that run on a reserve of power, how these commands are carried out has changed considerably. Rather than the old turn-based system where you would select commands for the whole party and they'd be carried out in order of agility versus your opponents, Sel Mounta is instead using a real-time with pause system. Basically, this means you'll get a bar above your party members' heads that fills up over time. It fills up relative to their agility stat versus your opponents, and when it's full, the game will pause, allowing you to select what you want them to do that turn. This does indeed mean that fast enough characters or opponents may be able to act more than once before the slower ones do. But here's the thing. Cooldowns, skill durations and such are all reliant on the turn of the one affected by them. If you've laden, for example, Catelyn down with heavy armour and she's moving very slowly, while she'll only be able to act very occasionally, if you use one of her skills like counterattack or taunt, it'll last for a really long time. Going slow won't always be a bad thing, and there are times where it could be useful. Lastly on the list of features to go over, there's also the return of the Red Rock system. Though you'll have to go a bit further through to get it this time, it takes a little bit more to unlock it, it functions in the same way it used to. Once you go somewhere, you'll get a red rock token for the area, and the same is true of various shops on the island. Using the token, assuming something in the story isn't preventing you at the time, will allow you to remotely order items or fast travel to other locations. It's a small thing, but removes a lot of foot slogging. So, that's the game, or at least a rough idea of it anyway. For a new player doing all of the optional content, the game should run you for about 20 hours or so, I reckon. There is of course more that I haven't gone into here, but I don't want to spoil everything. The game is very much story based, there's a lot of dialogue and everything, and I want to leave that up to you guys to encounter. There's a lot to find, there's even a lot of optional stuff. There'll either be a link in the description to the Steam store page if it's up already, or if not, it will be up shortly. I am recording this before the store page has gone up fully. And I'll do another update on the channel when it comes up, so if you don't want to miss that, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. YouTube apparently doesn't want things to be easy and just be on a single button for some reason, so yeah. You can also come join the BWI Games Discord. It's, no problem, free to join, anyone's welcome, since that's where I also am most active. I share stuff about all the current game projects there and answer questions, so if you want to know maybe any little tidbits before the game releases, or if you've got any curiosity about it, come ask there. If you have any trouble with the game once it's out, you can also ask there. I'm happy to give some strategy advice. So yeah, the game should be out June this year, 2023, late June-ish is the current planned release date. I don't know exactly when it will be, but that's what I'm aiming for. And hopefully you'll all enjoy. Goodbye.